let's talk about Tennessee. Let's talk about Oklahoma. Let's talk about what we learned day 2 of the SEC Media Days when Josh Heupel took to the days. I already am excited about Tennessee traveling to Oklahoma. That's really my biggest takeaway, is just what Josh Heupel's energy was like, what his thought process was like when he was answering questions around his time at Oklahoma, because I am of the opinion that nobody wants to beat Oklahoma as badly as Josh Heupel wants to beat Oklahoma. It's remarkable when you think about what has transpired over the last 25 years with Josh Heupel, who came to Oklahoma from Snow College, ran an offense that ended up being the offense that won Oklahoma its only national championship in the 21st century, and was so good as a quarterback that at the coin toss for the national championship game, Torrance Marshall famously said, "I came to get my boy's Heisman back." And his boy was Josh Heupel. Josh turns out to be one hell of a football coach. He is hired 2011 to be the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma for Bob Stoops, while Brent Venables was in his 13th year as a defensive assistant and a defensive coordinator at Oklahoma. Really interesting team there. They won 10 games. They end up winning the Inside Bowl, but it was up and down at the quarterback position. Like, you're talking about what Blake Bell ended up showing a little bit later on. There's a blast from the past. Kendall Thompson was also around during that time. Trevor Knight ends up becoming the guy a little bit later on. Trevor Knight might have been Josh Heupel's undoing, because in 2014, after it was looking like Josh Heupel was going to be the guy to take over for Bob Stoops if and when he decided to retire, Bob made the decision to fire Josh Heupel, and you can imagine how Heupel felt about that. It made way for Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley comes in and turns Oklahoma's offense into the kind that makes the college football playoff, wins Big 12 championships, and leads Bob Stoops to going, okay, that's the guy to succeed me in 2017. Turns out the first 4 years of that, outstanding, pretty great. And then Lincoln did what was unthinkable for Oklahoma fans. He left the Yankees job that many of us believe is the Yankees job to go to USC, in part because he believed that he could not get the kind of players necessary to win a national championship in this day and age at Oklahoma. Well, that went over like a cat thrown into a bathwater, okay? Into some bathwater. People are still angry at Lincoln for taking another job and moving to the West Coast and eventually joining the Big Ten as head coach of the USC Trojans. And then they go and get the guy that many of us, myself included, thought he should have been the guy if Lincoln ever did decide to leave, and it was Brent Venables. Venables came to Oklahoma. It didn't go well in 2022. It went much better in 2023, and now they feel loaded for bear going into 2024. But another reason as to why I think this is big for Tennessee is they got a tough schedule as well, and they are not unlike LSU is right now. And the reason I say that is both of them are coming off of outstanding wins in the bowl season, right? We got Tennessee beating Iowa in the Citrus Bowl. We got LSU beating Wisconsin in the ReliaQuest Bowl. Both of them have outstanding young quarterbacks. Garrett Nussmeier can throw a football over them mountains. Nico Iamaleava can throw a football over them mountains, and he's got that physical size and imposing. He reminds me a lot of Vince Young in his build and the way that he moves with the ball. We'll see if he's able to lead Tennessee to a national championship, but any road is going to have to go through a daunting SEC schedule. I also think that while LSU's defense, let me put it another way, Tennessee's defense was okay, right? They were 32nd in total yards and 21st in defensive efficiency. LSU's defense was Matt House, which is a profane gesture, a profane word in the state of Louisiana. Given what LSU had to work with on that defensive side of the ball and what they turned out to have on the offensive side of the ball, you just wanted somebody that could stop someone from scoring 40, right? I don't think that is where Tennessee is. And given what Heupel had to work with when he first took the job in 2021, seeing that they've won 20 games the last 2 years with Hendon Hooker and rehabilitating Joe Milton and Hendon Hooker for that matter into stars, that offense that spreads everybody out, that really wants to go fast, that stretches you vertically, that creates great run matchups because the number one is going to be on the safety, which means you don't have the extra man in the box to take away perhaps a 1v1 running back. you're in a great spot there. And I think Tennessee fans are sensing this because Heupel let go that 15,000 people are on the waiting list to get tickets to see games at Neyland. Like, that's remarkable. Given what that program was like when Butch Jones was there, when Jeremy Pruitt was there, I think that you could tell a Tennessee fan almost anything about Josh Heupel and they would go for it. And because he's been so good to them, they want him to get this win against Oklahoma on the road. And I think also because it's really the first time that we're going to see Oklahoma play a true blue SEC opponent. And it's going to be one of the sons of the University of Oklahoma, by the way. University of Oklahoma. Got a guy that graduated, right, in Josh Heupel, who's head coach of Tennessee. University of Oklahoma got a guy who graduated in Sharon Moore at Michigan, head coaches. Just throw that out there, just in case y'all were thinking. And right before Josh Heupel pointed to Barry Trammell as the grand wizard of Oklahoma media, well, that's a choice. I was wondering to myself, which one of these wide receivers is going to turn out to be the Jalen Hyatt or the Cedric Tillman on this squad, because that's who they've had when they've been great. They've had outstanding wideouts. They didn't really have that last year. It's past time for Brew McCoy and Squirrel White to turn into one of those guys, okay? Brew McCoy, who's been around football long enough to have committed to USC, committed to Texas, ended up at Tennessee, was recruited to play linebacker at Alabama by Saban, only wanted to play wide receiver, ends up at Tennessee. It's past time for that dude to show up and be the man, all right? Nico's going to need a number one out there, especially if you expect to go through this schedule and make hay. And I think they can. I think they can go through the schedule and make hay. I think they're going to be good, but I also think you got a squad, man. You got a squad, but you also got a schedule. You got a schedule that lends itself to that at-large bid, and that's where I think a lot of my conversation is going to be around the middle of the SEC, the middle of the Big Ten, the middle of the Big 12, the middle of the ACC is which one of these programs that might not make the conference championship game is in line to get one of those 5 at-large bids. And I think you're going to start by looking at what the schedule looked like and how good they were compared to their opponents. And when I look at Tennessee, I see a program that is on its way to finding itself. And I think Heupel was doing himself a bit of a service here by bringing guys that, frankly, media didn't really want to talk to. And he was getting kind of testy about, hey, I wanted this media event to be about the guys that I brought. Yeah, well, as professionals, I want to talk to the stars of the football team. And Nico Iamaleava is one of those stars, and he wasn't there. Okay? I understand wanting to protect him. I also understand not wanting to put him out there. But at some point, that's what it's going to be about if you're going to be good. And I'm sure Heupel will be ready to do that. The last thing I wanted to tell you about Josh Heupel is when I covered Oklahoma as a beat writer, he was one of those guys that was very, very kind to me, right? As a guy who was really finding his way from about the time I graduated high school to grad school at Oklahoma, I would ask Josh Heupel just this or that about how the offense was running and what he wanted it to be, how he was teaching Trevor Knight mesh point when it came to that, how he was teaching 21 personnel versus 11, and what kind of offense he was trying to run. And it turned out, as I'm learning all this, it dawned on me that he was running the offense that Bob asked him to run, and that did not end up being the offense that he ran at Central Florida and is running at Tennessee. It's got a lot of Baylor-based principles. It's a lot of tempo. It's a lot of veer and shoot. I wonder how much of that Josh Heupel reflects on day to day, week to week. And I got to believe it's considerable. But also, Josh Heupel is antithetical to Lane Kiffin, and I think that's great for Tennessee because they need that kind of guy to be their head coach. And more than that, they need to win. So they won 11 games, won 9 games. Let's see if they can get back to 11 games, and let's see just how good that Tennessee Volunteers team can be. We'll be back here a little bit later on to talk about what Brent Venables had to say at SEC Media Days and just what I think Oklahoma is capable of with the toughest schedule in the entire SEC when we come back.